In 2024, you will be shocked to know that there are places where Black people are not welcome, and they encounter unexpected challenges when they do visit these places. Strange, right? No, it is not. This is the reality of many Black travelers. In this video, I will be listing out the top 10 countries where, if you are a Black traveler, you might need to do proper research before visiting these places. But before we dive into a thing or two that every Black traveler needs to know as they plan to book their next travel adventure, please like, share, and hit the subscribe button. You should also turn on that notification bell so you don't have to miss out on the informative travel tips I've got for you. Let me also know in the comments section if you know of other countries. The top 10 countries where Black people are not welcomed due to unseen biases and outright discrimination are going to be listed in no particular order. Some destinations can make people who are Black and love to travel feel anything but safe. These group of people might expect a warm welcome when they visit these countries and attempt to explore the country's cultures. But for some, the reality can be very different. This is not just about subtle racial biases or obstinate stares, but about serious racial tensions, about anti-Black sentiment, and about places where warnings for Black travelers are real. Consideration before going to these places is a must. You may be wondering, which countries have aggressive environments or where Black travelers may face racism and aggressive behavior by host country? You are not wrong, but this is the reality of certain type of people that look certain way. As I share insights on countries Black people may want to avoid, you should also take note of what you need to know to stay safe abroad. Trust me, when you know about these countries I'm going to be sharing in this video, you might just want to change your travel plans. Now, let's get to the shocking truth. Number 1 country on my list is India. With the vibrant culture, stunning landmarks, and rich history of the India people, it is sure on the bucket list destination for numerous travelers. However, for Black tourists, India portrays distinctive challenges that can make it difficult for their visit to be enjoyable. In India, colorism is a thing and it runs deep, and about 62% of Black expatriates report encountering racial discrimination. There is the stern stares by the people of India when they see visitors in their country, unfriendly comments, or even worse, these are all very common encounter for Black tourists in India. This deeply ingrained bias has its origins in the country's long history of colonialism, where lighter skin was often connected with higher status. Unfortunately, these obsolete ideas still continue, and Black people frequently find themselves at the receiving end of this prejudice. Do not be surprised if you ever feel like an exhibit on display when you are walking through the bustling markets or visiting the renowned Taj Mahal. Trust me, you will definitely get those stares from locals who may have never met or seen a Black person before. And this will make you ask yourself if you had just stepped off a UFO. Apart from the stares and unwelcoming comments, Black tourists in India can also encounter more serious issues such as being treated with distrust or even denied services in some establishments. Although India's varied culture is an attraction for most people, its struggle with accepting and welcoming of dark skin-colored persons makes it one of the top 10 countries Black people might want to avoid when ticking off that bucket list. You should bear in mind that visiting this beautiful country can come at a cost and its own challenges for you as a Black traveler if you are considering taking a trip to India. India's deep-seated colorism, unwelcoming gestures, and racial bias cannot be overlooked when planning that trip. Again, an open mind and possibly a thick skin might work for you. Number 2 on the list is South Korea. South Korea undoubtedly is home to Korean pop music, cutting-edge technology, and of course, delicious barbecue. South Korea is increasingly turning into a very popular destination for travelers, visitors, tourists. But if you are a Black traveler, you might want to note that navigating this extremely homogeneous country can be very challenging. You don't want to be like the only dish at a buffet that nobody is willing to try. Obviously, sticking out in the crowd as a stranger in South Korea is already too challenging enough, but being Black is even way tougher. About 55% of expat Black people in South Korea already reported encountering racial segregation. It could be having to cope with endless stares from Koreans or getting turned away from a taxi. Feeling out of place is the situation where many Black people have found themselves. South Korean media, which has a long history of showing Black people in a bad light, do not even help the situation. Be it in outdated stereotypes or insensitive representations, Black tourists can often find themselves misrepresented or misunderstood. These representations only do one thing, that is to support prejudices, and this sure makes everyday interactions feel difficult or unfriendly. The lack of racial diversity in South Korea in history showed that foreigners, particularly Black folks, were a rare sight, and while the country is becoming more exposed to global impacts, old attitudes die tough. Black travelers often report that simple activities such as visiting tourist sites or going for grocery shopping can become isolating, as locals may stare at you as a Black person or avoid interaction with you altogether. You should brace up for a combination of excitement and difficulty if you are contemplating on visiting this beautiful country called South Korea. Although South Korea has plenty to offer, ranging from its rich culture to the vibrant nightlife, nevertheless, racial prejudices and cultural misunderstandings still make it rank among the top countries that is anti-Black when it comes to Black travelers visiting. Develop a sense of humor because you will sure need it, and also note that Black people are not welcomed in South Korea. Number 3 country on this list is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia may be known for its wealth and rich history, but when it comes to Black people being welcomed into that rich and wealthy country, things are very different. It is like escalation from 0 to 100 in 1 minute. In that country, you will discover that about 70% of disputes involving labor in the country envelops Black workers. And of course, many of these Black workers come from African countries to work. As part of the huge migrant labor force, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been broadly criticized for its treatment of Black laborers who often face harsh working conditions and rampant racial discrimination. It is not a hidden thing to know that the strict cultural laws in Saudi Arabia make it difficult for many foreigners to adapt. For Black travelers, the situation can even be more troubling. The racial bias doesn't just affect only the migrant workers, it also extends to Black people who are visiting the country and expatriates who often encounter indirect and sometimes not so indirect prejudice. You find some examples where several Black people report being treated with suspicion and hostility in public places. This makes their daily events, such as dining out and even shopping, feel like solving a never-ending mathematical problem. The stares on Black people are the most common, more like, "I have not seen a person like you before" kind of stare. We should understand that the hostile or unfriendly attitude toward Black people by the Saudi Arabians is not just a recent issue. This racial hierarchies have been in existence in the region, and it is historical. It is influenced by the slave trade and long-standing cultural standards. It is presumed that progress is being made in certain areas. However, systemic problems still make it one of the top 10 countries Black visitors, tourists, or travelers may want to avoid. Know it today that you would have to pack your patience and, of course, develop a thick skin if you must, or are planning to visit the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Number 4 on our list is Ukraine. Ukraine has and may often boast of its rich cultural heritage and the beautiful landscapes. Ukraine has been ranked as one of the least racially tolerant countries in Europe, making it a difficult travel destination for people who are Black. Ukraine may not exactly be among the top countries when it comes to racial tolerance. Despite their rich cultural heritage, it is definitely ranked amongst the top countries Black people might want to avoid. A particularly disturbing trend in 2022 showed African students who reported several occurrences. You could see where these students from Africa were denied entry into buses and trains during evacuations. Even those who gain access into the trains were thrown out by security guards. This particular incident went viral, and some of these revelations were shocking, to say the least. The absence of the culture of diversity and common racial discrimination generates a chilly treatment for Black visitors, regularly making them feel unwelcome in the country. If you are trying to access public transportation or just walking down the street as Black traveler in Ukraine, you may find yourself on the receiving end of hostile treatment. The country's homogeneousness and their limited experience with different cultures have contributed to a status that Black people and even other minorities find it hard to ignore. In terms of history and architectural development, Ukraine has a lot to offer. However, you as a Black travelers might still want to think and double-check with yourself before booking that flight ticket. With the indirect and occasionally not-so-indirect racism, it is not surprising that Ukraine makes it to the list of the top 10 countries where Black people are not welcomed. Note that you might require more than just a ticket when riding a train in Ukraine as a Black traveler or visitor, so be prepared. Number 5 on this list is Israel. Israel as a country is often respected for its rich history and religious significance. It is also a place where complex ethnic and racial dynamics produce a difficult environment for Black people, most especially immigrant from Africa. In 2023, racial incidents that was targeted at immigrants from Africa increased by 30%. This showed clearly the challenges Black persons face in Israel. For many travelers who are Black, Israel can feel very unwelcoming, as they experience a society where they are often watched with suspicion. Black Africans in Israel report facing racial bias, not only in their daily interactions, but also in more established forms like housing and employment. The tension between different ethnic groups in Israel is not new, however. The increase in hostility toward immigrants, especially Black folks, has made it amongst the top countries you might want to avoid as a Black person. Black travelers or visitors might experience unfriendly stares or feel out of place as though you are a rare Pokemon in a world full of Pidgeys. This can happen even in casual settings. Visiting Israel can be a challenging experience, as the racial issues extend beyond just minor inconveniences for Black travelers. Be it trying to get accommodation or just trying to fit in, the deep-seated biases can make daily activities a real hassle. It is unfortunate that Israel got a place among the top countries Black people might want to avoid. Despite its rich culture and historical religious significance, that racial tension in the country still exists. It is sad that humanity cannot look beyond the color of one's skin. This should serve as an eye-opener to many Black individuals who are considering booking their trips to these countries on the list. It might be surprising to know that some of the countries we never suspected are on this list. But just wait to see, as we are only halfway through. These encounters are real, and it is very vital to stay informed as a traveler or tourist to foreign countries. Before we continue, if you are liking this informative content so far, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video for others to get informed as well. It would also help me to bring more informative and eye-opening travel tips your way. Do not forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't have to miss out when the videos drop. Number 6 on this list is Japan. We all know that Japan is the land of cutting-edge technology, cherry blossoms, and mouth-watering sushi, and of course, has plenty to offer. However, when we talk about embracing diversity, Japan as a country has some thoughtful catching up to do. For a fact, about 45% of Black expatriates living in Japan report facing racial bias, and it ranges from being stared at in public places, public transport, to feeling like an outcast in social gatherings. Black people in Japan commonly experience subtle exclusion. The absence of racial diversity makes it very challenging for Black tourists and travelers to feel really welcomed. It is not a surprise that Japan ranks among the top 10 countries Black people may definitely want to avoid. It is also not just the day-to-day interactions that cause discomfort. The media in Japan do not exactly help the situation either. Negative stereotypes of Black people are still maintained in television shows, advertisements, and even cartoons. It's not rare to see blackface still being used in Japanese media, a shocking reality for many first-time visitors. This strengthens obsolete and offensive views, making Black tourists feel more isolated. Japan as a country has been a mostly homogeneous society from history. Although the country is starting to open up to external influences, however, the reception of racial diversity has been very slow. This can be translated into subtle and overt racism for Black people. It doesn't matter if they are dining, shopping, or just trying to enjoy the famous tourist attractions in Japan. Although high-tech gadgets and iconic innovations in Japan may be very attractive, but its lack of diversity and racial bias or racial tension makes it one of the top 10 countries on the list. You already know what to expect as a black person if you're planning a trip to Japan. Also, prepare your mind to navigate more than just the language barrier you will encounter, as you will also need a trailer load of patience. Number 7 on this list is Greece. Greece is well known for its ancient wrecks, spectacular islands, and enjoyable gyros. However, for travelers or visitors who are black, it is not all cheerfulness. The racial tensions in this country have escalated in recent years, mainly following the movement of people into the country as per history. The rise in tension has hit immigrants from Africa the hardest, many of whom report encountering hostility, particularly in areas separate from the main tourist centers. You might feel safe enough when you wander through Athens' beautiful neighborhoods. However, if venture further outside of the neighborhood, the story changes. There are regular reports by black travelers, often feeling unwelcomed, and many would describe the experience as total racism. This situation is not just more about the unfriendly stares, there is also the incidence of verbal abuse and sometimes physical confrontations. These have been on the rise according to reports, and the racial tensions are obviously not isolated occurrences, but are part of a larger issue that has been rising since the arrival of immigrants from Africa and the Middle East. These problems, unfortunately, indicate that people who are black regularly feel like they are walking on eggshells when traveling through certain parts of Greece. Inasmuch as you want to immerse yourself in the beauty of Santorini or the historical marvels of the Parthenon, you may want to escape some parts that are less friendly. Although Greece is a dream destination for many people, it is still a country that has got a position among the top 10 countries where black travelers are not welcomed, and you might want to reconsider including it on your bucket list. Number 8 on the list is Italy. Our very own Italy, the land of pizza, pasta, the Colosseum, and incredible art, definitely seem like a dream destination that should be in your bucket list, right? Oh wait, not so fast. The experience for black travelers can be less than beautiful. Bellissimo. While Italy is well known for its history and culture, it has regrettably experienced a 35% increase in ethnically motivated crimes, specifically targeting immigrants from African countries. This disturbing figure outlines a rising problem with racism in Italy, making it one of the top countries black people should avoid if their safety is of utmost importance to them. The bias is not just limited to immigrants in the country only, but also extends to black travelers, who often report being unwelcomed in public places, ranging from restaurants to shopping areas. If you are a black person in Italy, you might get some cold stares along with your hot drink, or when you are sipping that cappuccino in a pleasant cafe. Do not be surprised. Again, walking down well-known tourist sites like the Colosseum or the canals of Venice, black tourists have described unpleasant encounters from microaggressions to complete anger. The racial tensions in Italy are entrenched in both its current political environment and its history of immigration. Many immigrants from Africa have settled in Italy over the years. This has led to an increase in xenophobic attacks and racial discrimination on black folks. Regrettably, these problems have spilled over and thus affect black tourists as well, who may encounter equal maltreatment. Although Italy as a country has much to offer in terms of beauty and history, however, the increase in racial occurrences has earned the country its place among the top 10 countries where people who are black are not welcomed. You sure need a lot of patience and a sense of adventure if you want to take a trip to this country, because you might encounter more than just the tourist crowds. Number 9 on the list is China. The transformation of China into a worldwide economic capital is nothing short of astounding. Despite all the country's progress, some things haven't changed still. For example, the entrenched racial prejudices that exist against black travelers in the country. China can be a provocative destination for black tourists. Expatriates from Africa and black visitors often encounter discriminatory behavior that can range from endless stares to additional disturbing forms of harassment. It is an ill-fated reality for many black visitors in China. The problem mostly comes from cultural misconceptions and the absence of exposure to diversity. Although China is fast growing on the global stage, but the country remains comparatively homogeneous, particularly outside of main cities like Beijing and Shanghai. This has been shown to represent an environment where Black immigrants as well as Black travelers are frequently seen as misfit with unfair and untrue beliefs, intensifying the bias. It is a usual thing for Black individuals to be denied service in some institutions, for example, or be treated with obvious distrust. Specifically in most rural areas, we see that in recent times, China is making great efforts to promote international relationships, mainly with African countries. However, these relationships haven't essentially converted into daily social reception. Because of this, Black travelers regularly feel uneasy and unwelcomed. You may want to admire that Great Wall of China or navigating the bustling streets of some of the beautiful cities, but the cultural breach and absence of diversity can definitely make China one difficult place for Black people or visitors. Therefore, Black people should think twice before visiting this country. It is not surprising that China is among the top 10 countries who rarely accept Black people. If you still want to travel to China as a Black person, be prepared for more than just cultural shock, as you might receive more attention than you had ever wanted. The last but not the least, number 10 on the list, is Russia. Russia is a country that, despite its rich cultural history and iconic landmarks like the Kremlin and Red Square, it still has a long-lasting problem with racism against Black travelers or tourists. Russia can be predominantly unfriendly to these group of people. Occurrences of racial slurs, aggravation, and even physical violence are not rare. As a matter of fact, surveys have shown that racial discrimination against Black people in Russia is predominant, with immigrants from Africa and Black visitors frequently reporting hostile encounters in main cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Black travelers might find themselves exposed to apprehensive stares or hurtful comments. But the condition can be far worse in smaller towns, where diversity is even uncommon. Unfortunately, the presence of the far-right nationalist groups has given rise to an environment where Black people, including tourists, may feel insecure, even if it is just walking down the road. Racially stirred attacks specifically on African students and Black tourists have been reported. This further strengthens Russia's status as one of the top countries Black people should avoid. Although Russia's contribution to art, literature, and history are world-renowned, its systemic problems with racism make it a tough destination for Black travelers. With all the beautiful sights to behold, ranging from the majestic Hermitage Museum to the Trans-Siberian Railway, the fundamental tension can turn a thrilling trip into a traumatic experience. With the racial tensions running high and the incidence of intolerance on the rise, it is not surprising to know that Russia is among the list of top countries where Black people, travelers, or tourists are not welcomed. Apart from packing more than just your winter coat when heading to Russia, you may want to pack some more layers of patience and, of course, caution to steer through the intricate cultural landscape. Here you go. Our top 10 countries where Black travelers are not welcomed, and you may want to think it through before booking that flight ticket. This video is not intended to discourage you from traveling to these beautiful countries, rather to prepare your minds and to inform you. Knowing what you might encounter before visiting any place can better prepare you to navigate your way and make more informed decisions. Inasmuch as every travel experience may be unique, it is also crucial to know about some of the challenges Black travelers may encounter in certain parts of the world. Good luck. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful or informative, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more travel destination insights. Let me know in the comments section if you have personal experiences in any of these countries listed, or if you have tips for fellow travelers.